What's up? I'm B, and welcome to my channel. It has been quite a while since I've done a live stream, and admittedly, I'm super nervous. I think two reasons. One, I spoke about this a little bit on Instagram, but it bears repeating. Um, Being like a new parent is something that is very new to me, and the kids have gone through a lot of things that I don't necessarily know how to deal with. And so my self confidence has definitely taken a bit of a hit lately. And I think that's kind of part of why I've been avoiding live streaming in case I'm like tired or off or something goes wrong. And these live streams are literally something that means so much to me, and I've gotten a lot of comments from you guys also saying that they mean a lot to you too and that you miss them. And so let's just bring them back. Let's do it. We got to bring them back. I got to bite the bullet and get back into it because I miss hanging out with you guys in real time. So let's do it. And what was the other thing? Oh, the other thing why I'm nervous about this is because this is a really important topic, and I know it can be kind of controversial. And typically, I don't shy away from controversial topics too much, but it is something that is so deeply personal for so many people. And the, I guess, creator who inspired this conversation is currently going through a deconstruction, and I think it is so powerful and so important, and I want to talk about it, and I want to do it justice while respecting her journey. And so we're going to get into her, what's going on and all that, but we'll give people some time to get into the live stream. Hi, Kaz. Yeah, if you're in here, say hi. Feel free to give the stream a like. I would appreciate it. And let's go ahead and get some wins for the week in the stream. Let me know best thing that happened to you this week. I want to hear it. I'm excited. Kaz said, I'm so glad you're live streaming this topic. I deconverted right before the panorama, so it's been interesting. Wow, yeah. I kind of believe that because not I kind of believe that. I can understand maybe how the panorama the Panera has converted to a lot of people's deconstruction, as well as just wrestling with their faith, because that's what the creator that we're talking about, it kind of, I don't want to say caused her to go through this, but it contributed to this while she was, in lockdown that year. Kind of, we're still in it, but during COVID, she went through a significant portion of the deconstruction, and she's still going through it, but I think that played a major role because you're at home, there's not really much to do, you're with your significant other, and if you're both of the same faith, that can lead to some interesting conversations and stuff like that. Hi, Ruanne. Hi, Patricia. Smitten Kitten said, leaving the LDS church can be harrowing, if that's what we're watching. Yeah, it is related to the LDS church. Hi, Pure Cane Sugar. So, again, give me your wins. My win for the week, I guess, was turning 27. I was a little bit bummed that it was like, so I turned 27 on the 27th, which was yesterday, and I always kind of growing up thought that like my golden birthday was going to be a big deal and there was going to be a big party and all this fun stuff. And obviously because of the pandemic and life changes and being super busy at work, like stuff that's going on there, it just kind of threw that off 100%. But it was just a good day yesterday. Turning 27, I think, is going to be a good age. I'm excited for this next year. Patricia said, best thing this week, new clothes for the puppets. Fun. Katie said, hi, B, so good to see you. So good to see you, Katie, in real time. Patricia said, happy belated birthday. Thank you. Smitten Kitten said, my win, cleaning the crap out of my sewing room. Is that too boring? No, because cleaning feels so good. Kaz said, also my win for the week is getting the call for an interview at my local library. I recently left a really stressful customer service job, so I'm hoping I get this new one. Ooh, customer service. If you do customer service, man, like my hat is off to you. I did customer service for a long time, and It's tough. It is a tough job for sure. Definitely contributes to a lot of burnout. So I'm glad you left it, and I hope that you get the job at the library. Smitten Kitten said 27 is an amazing age. Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. Pure Cane Sugar said, my win for the week is that I stayed true to my word and left the house more than once this week. Good job. That's awesome. Hi, Danny Jade. So let's go ahead and I guess we'll give it like 2 more minutes-ish, and then we'll just go ahead and get started. As always, this will stay up, so if you have to leave or you can't end up watching the whole thing, no worries. It's gonna take like an hour probably to process, but then it'll be back up and it will stay up. Patricia said, I cannot remember 27 if I'm being honest. That was 21 years ago. Wow. Yeah, 27 is gonna be interesting. 26 was a wild ride, so I can only imagine what's gonna come this next year. Smitten Kitten said, I'm always super nice to customer service people. People dump so much crap onto you guys when you literally have nothing to do with their problems. Yeah. And it's hard because, like, not to get off topic, but if you are working in customer service, like, you have a limit where you have to, like, take it up until a certain point. I remember when I worked at a call center for 9 months, most miserable 9 months of my life, but they were like, the only time you can disconnect a call is if they say something racist to you or they like are screaming and swearing at you, and even then we'll have to review the call to see if you get in trouble. And so people would just call and like be so mad and angry. One time some dude was just, I don't even remember what he was mad about. He was so angry, and he was in a different state, and so he had asked where I was, and I was like, yeah, I'm actually in Arizona. And he goes, well, I hope it's hot there. And I was like, yeah, it usually is. And he just like didn't know what to say. He just kind of stopped. I was like, okay, so I'll get that supervisor for you. And then we had to wait on hold for a supervisor for about 45 minutes, and I had to check in with him every 2 minutes per our policy and just be like, hey, just checking in, hope you're doing okay, we're still waiting for that supervisor. Oh, my hat is off to customer service people because it's rough. Dietitian Kat Benson, hi, first time catching live as a channel member. Yay. Smitten Kitten said, haha, I'm in Arizona, so I feel that. I'm like, it's always hot. Yeah, of course it's hot here. As I'm sitting here in socks, leggings, and a long sleeve shirt, but I'm chilly. Cass said, I was a call center agent, and yes, totally, you can only end a call if they're being a specific type of abusive. Right, it is the worst. I have heard some of the most hateful, vitriolic things working in a call center. But, all right, so let's go ahead and just get into this. Now, I had like kind of prefaced this video in my video reacting to Classically Abby, and a few people did not quite know what deconstruction was, and they were kind of interested in the concept of it in general. And the way I view deconstruction is just when you've grown up or you ascribe to a certain religion, it's you noticing some things. It kind of starts with like noticing some things that maybe seem off or maybe don't sit right with you, and taking a step back to look at the things that you have been told by your parents, your church leaders, your community, whoever it is, and asking yourself, is this actually what I believe to be true? Because I think when you first enter into a religion or you grow up in a religion, any religion at all, sometimes you just hear these things and you take them at face value and you say, okay, well, a leader told me this, a pastor told me this, somebody who's been in the religion for such a long time has told me that these things are true. So, yep, sounds about right. But you never actually think about what the implication is of those things or if you actually believe them. So you take a step back, you examine those things, and you try to figure out the truth. And of course, a lot of truths are subjective. I think there are very few objective truths. So the truth can mean different things for different people, but it's essentially figuring out what you actually believe, if you believe anything at all. And I know for me, I'm kind of in, I don't know, I think I've been in a state of deconstruction for years now, I would say. There were very few things that I just took and ran with in religion. I will say, in like junior high and high school, I was very black and white about a lot of things, and was probably a bit judgmental. I was always taught to like be kind to everybody, be nice to people, like don't be rude, don't condemn people to their faces. Like behind the scenes, we'll talk about what this is, why it's wrong, what they're doing that doesn't align with us, but to their faces you should always be nice. And so I kind of had to wrestle with that, like, okay, well, why should we, like, why is it important to be kind to them and be nice to them, but then we can go say these things behind their back, or we can say these things when they're not around, or we can condemn them, but not to their faces. And so I think starting pretty early in high school, I started having those questioning things, and I'm always questioning. So that's just kind of where I'm at. I think an important part of deconstruction is then reconstructing. That's been my experience, is finding out more context and historical facts and kind of rebuilding my faith system. But it does often result in people becoming either atheist, agnostic, or switching religions. Some people go back to their same church, some people switch denominations. It can end in a various number of ways, but after you tear apart your belief system, you build up a new one, and that can even include not having one at all. And then there are two quotes that I just found that I thought were interesting about deconstruction, and this one is from a person named John Williamson. He said, "It's examining your faith from the inside, looking for potential weaknesses. The analogy I like to use is before you set sail on a cruise ship, you'll see it in the harbor and people applying a fresh coat of paint, sealing up any gaps and dealing with the rust. This is done so it doesn't sink once you get out to sea, and that's essentially the same thing that we're saying about faith. It's about taking ownership of what you believe and potentially letting go of some of the things that no longer work." And then this one is from Lisa Gunger from The Most Beautiful Thing I've Seen. And she said, "Let's say our faith was like a sweater. Yarn, our ideology. Weave, our tradition. This is how you wear it. Don't change it. Even if the sweater doesn't keep you warm anymore, even if it's too tight or the threads cut off oxygen at your neck, this is the way. Doubts and questions mean disrespect, and those are the seeds of evil, so just don't. But over the years, a thread comes loose, and you try to just tuck it in alongside the others. You can cover the fraying up, you can pull the thread and think, oh, I don't need this one because it is harmful to me. It's itchy and gets caught on corners. It comes out easily, and the sweater stays together. Then you pull another, and soon you find all the yarn is gone. You have deconstructed the entire thing. You are left naked. People gawk and run away, and you feel two opposing things, the freedom of glorious nakedness and the fear of the same." Those were just kind of cool quotes. I'm going to check in on the comment section, see if any of you guys have shared some of your thoughts on deconstruction or your perception of what it is, and then we will really get into the topic. Smitten Kitten said, "I find it fascinating when people document their deconstruction process. It's such a personal journey shared so openly. It's social commentary oftentimes." Yeah. Kaz said, "Learning the truth isn't the truth was very difficult for me." And it really can be. Like, if you've been a faithful member of a religion for a very long time, and then you take a step back and realize that either you were lied to by leaders, or you were misled in some way, or you just, went along with things that other people said were true without thinking critically about them, and you realize that you don't believe those things for yourself, that can be very harrowing. It can be scary. You can be afraid that you're going to lose your community, your family, your friends, your faith, your salvation potentially, because you're questioning things that the church has told you. And so it can be a very scary thing, and I think it's really incredible when people talk about it openly and when they share that vulnerability of maybe saying that they went along with things that were not the best and that could have caused harm to others. Saya said, Hi, Saya. "I left organized religion for 3 years in my deconstruction process, and while it was painful, it was worthwhile for sure." Absolutely. I think it helps if you do end up rebuilding a new faith system, it helps you feel true ownership over your beliefs, and it helps you kind of get rid of, because I can't, I, I don't ever want to be like disrespectful to anybody else's religion, but I'll speak for Christianity. There are some seriously toxic things in Christianity. And so you look at those and you want to, they don't sit right with you. You think, well, why? Like, why is that okay? Why are we teaching this? This makes me feel bad. This makes me hurt for other people who might be hurt by this. And so when you deconstruct and then go on to reconstruct, you can get rid of those things and you can say, I'm not subscribing to these things that intentionally hurt people or damage people, and you can feel confident in your beliefs and you can feel good about them. And then, of course, obviously, if your reconstruction is no faith system whatsoever, you can get rid of any guilt or shame that might have been implanted in you by your religion. So, like I said, this video was inspired by another YouTuber who is currently going through a deconstruction process, and her name is Hallie. She is a member, or I don't know, a member of the LDS church, and she has been on YouTube for 4 or 5-ish years. She used to have a blog. It hasn't really been updated in a long time. She wrote a book about leaving the Mormon church and coming back. And so basically she kind of, her life story, she has about 15,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I came across one of her videos a few months ago where she was talking about how just because things are normal doesn't mean they're okay. And for me, I thought she was going to take a bit of a different approach of like, well, just because it's, I don't know. I thought it was going to be kind of more, just because this thing is common in Christianity doesn't mean it's okay to make people feel shame. Like, I thought it was going to be that kind of video, if that makes sense. But it ended up being like, well, just because as teenagers you have raging hormones and you want to explore your body and your sexuality doesn't mean it's okay. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And I didn't agree with her video, but I wanted to watch more. And so I was watching some of her videos. She was a very strong defender of the Mormon church and of the Mormon faith. And over the past few weeks, she has been posting videos going through the literature on like the official church website and saying, this doesn't make sense to me. This doesn't make sense. I was never taught this. This was never told to me. Why are we preaching this when this is what's like happened according to history? And they're so interesting. She actually, just yesterday, the Mormon Stories podcast YouTube channel posted a 5-hour video with her talking about where she's at now and what her faith looks like. And part of this whole process is a video that she posted called, like, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And so I'm going to go a little bit more into kind of some of the things of the LDS church that they promote and they believe, and then we'll get into it. Jean said, so does deconstructing involve abandoning that particular faith? Not always. Deconstructing is different for everybody. I kind of went over this in the beginning, but deconstruction can just be taking a step back, evaluating things that you've been told, and then rebuilding your faith in that same religion. It can mean abandoning religion altogether. It can mean it can be a years-long process of trying to figure out what faith you want to subscribe to, and it just is completely different for everybody. Audrey said, no, I'm late. No, you're not too late. We're kind of into it, but we haven't gotten into the reaction yet. Vaishnavi said, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, said, hi everyone, my first live with you guys. It's 4 a.m. in India. I love your content, B. Oh my gosh. 4 a.m. Wow. Okay. So, a little bit about Hallie's story and then some things that I want to point out before we get into her video. So Hallie did not grow up in the Mormon church. She got baptized when she was like 15, I believe. Her parents were not LDS at all. And I'll use LDS and Mormon interchangeably. Some people say that the term Mormon is offensive when you're talking about people in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But I went to high school in an extremely Mormon area, like to the point where you could choose having seminary as part of your schedule, like your official school schedules, and all of them referred to themselves as Mormons. So I don't mean it offensively. That's just what people, like people that I know who are members of the LDS church, are okay with it, and so that's what I'm used to calling it. But her mom met some missionaries when Hallie was like younger. She eventually got baptized, and then Hallie eventually got baptized. She was dating a non-Mormon. She ended up going to BYU and breaking up with that non-Mormon. Eventually, she realized that she was not happy in the church. She wasn't getting the things that she thought she wanted from it, and so she left. And like, I would say she left being active. I don't think she decided that, like, I'm not religious at all. She just didn't go to, like, weekly services or anything. And then eventually she moved, and some missionaries came to her door and wanted to talk to her about her faith and all that. And then she ended up going back, meeting her husband, or the person who would be her husband, getting married. They went through some struggles. She's talked about this very openly, but I also don't want to like take the intimate parts of her story and put them out. You can definitely go find them on her channel, but they've each gone through their own struggles, both she and her husband, and they started going to therapy. Things started getting better, and then kind of at the end of last year, beginning of this year, she just was triggered into looking at why she was so unhappy in the church, what things that she was not okay with, going through that literature and going through her deconstruction. And from the Mormon Stories podcast, she's at a point where she is still married to her husband. Her husband is not okay with this deconstruction. He wants to raise their kids believing in the Mormon church and in that gospel in particular, and she's kind of just trying to figure it out, how it's going to look, if they're going to stay married, if they're going to be able to work it out. She's like, I will never go back to the church. I believe in God and I believe in Jesus, and I want my kids to know that they are like worthy and loved and not hear some of the toxic things that come from the church. And so I think that's a really cool spot for her to be at. I can't imagine how hard it is to get married thinking that you guys both believe the same thing and then have to come back and say, actually, I don't believe that. And she feels like free now that she's broken away from some of the things in the Mormon church, and she wants that for her husband, but he's just not there. And so definitely going to be an interesting process for her. Now we're going to watch that video of Hallie's where she kind of apologizes, because a lot of her YouTube content has been defending the church, has been somewhat condemning people who are Mormon but are not living up to all of the rules. And there are a lot of rules in the Mormon faith. In the church, they have these things called revelations, where they started with Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, and it's like, God told me this, so now this is like law for all of us, and they can change over time. And I could be wrong, but I believe it was into like the 70s or 80s, like the 1970s or 1980s, before the church had a revelation that Black people could become members of the priesthood. And so it's like, it's rules like that about who can be in the priesthood, what you need to do to be saved, who gets into the certain levels of heaven. They have like 3 levels: the celestial, telestial, and terrestrial, I believe. And like they're each one is higher than the other, and depending on how much good you do in the world, that's the level that you're going to get into. They have a lot of rituals, a lot of secrecy things. They wear garments that are like special long underwear, basically, to ensure that you are dressing modestly, because you don't ever want to show your garments once you've been endowed, which means prepared to live as a king or queen in the afterlife. They do. Oh, Sminkin said, I believe it was 1978. Okay, I was gonna say, I don't want to like give a wrong time period and like be incorrect, but I was pretty sure it was the 70s or 80s. So, okay, cool. I'm glad that I was right around the same time. And they have these, I'm going to get to it. So, two kind of beliefs I want to call out. First one is interesting and just kind of shows what our basis is for making rules in the Mormon Church. One of their rules is no smoking. And this comes from the words of wisdom. And Joseph Smith said God told him that smoking was bad. You shouldn't do it. Like, you should be treating your body like a temple, so nobody is allowed to smoke. But this is from LDS Women's History. It says, the word of wisdom is one of Mormonism's most easily identified characteristics, and Emma Smith, Joseph's wife, set it in motion. I know people like to quibble about the temperance movement's impact on the revelation, but however you slice it, Emma got the ball rolling on the revelation. Many of us know the story. At the School of the Prophets, the room was crowded with individuals wanting to hear the instruction from Joseph Smith and Orson Hyde, and they would thoroughly enjoy their pipes and chew tobacco while they talked. It bothered Emma. The room was always filthy from their spit. Her reasoning varies on the account. Some accounts simply state she thought it was a poor environment for Joseph's translation to occur. Most say she didn't want to clean the mess. Brigham Young recounted that she could not make the floor look decent. I assume there is truth in both. Whatever her reasoning, she dryly quipped to Joseph, it would be a good thing if a revelation could be had declaring the use of tobacco a sin and commanding its suppression. Doctrine and Covenants, section 89, came as a result. So it's like, God told me, no smoking, it is bad for you, you cannot do it, it is a sin. And then you look into it, and it's like, did you really hear that from God, or were you tired of your wife complaining about how dirty the floor was from all the spit and the smoke, like, because, you know, like, tobacco stains walls and floors, and so she's trying to keep the room clean, and she can't, and she's complaining about it, and so you're like, okay, God said this is a no-go. You know, like, there's lots of stories like that that you can uncover when you look at the specific rules that they have in the Doctrine and Covenants. And then this is something very serious, more so, and I want to make it clear, obviously, I'm not Mormon, went to high school in a very Mormon environment. I have respect for people of all faith systems. As long, my thing is like, you know, as long as you're not hurting anybody, as long as you're not causing harm, you do you, believe in whatever you want. However, Mormons have the Book of Mormon, but they also believe in the Bible. And so I'm not somebody who's going to sit here and say your belief is wrong, like this is incorrect, you should believe exactly as I believe. However, there are some things in Mormonism that clash with things from the Bible. And so that's why I'm bringing this up. That's why I am talking about it. So there is something in the Mormon Church called a temple recommend. Basically, there is, like, in many cities that have high populations of Mormons, they have this thing called the temple. This is not where you go for, like, your weekly worship. Weekly worship, you go to wards, and there are multiple wards throughout the community. I know my high school was, like, less than 3 miles away from my house, and I passed 2 on the way there every single, like, one way. I would pass 2 within a 3-mile radius. So they're all throughout the community. That's where you go for your weekly worship. And then the temple is like this sacred thing. And you have to have a temple recommend card to be able to go into the temple. And this is where they have like religious ceremonies. If you're becoming endowed, that's where you go. If you are getting sealed to your spouse or to your kids, that's where you go. They do baptisms of the dead there. Yes, that is a real thing that they do. And kids can get like a temporary temple recommend card to go in and participate in those. Basically, from my understanding, is they have these kids stand in for people who are dead, who you are giving the opportunity to get baptized and be converted into the afterlife. And they've actually done this with some celebrities as well, where it's like, yeah, like they do the ceremony for them and we give them the opportunity in the afterlife to convert to Mormonism. So you can get temporary cards for special events, special occasions, and then so they have like limited use recommend cards, recommended for living ordinances, and a temple recommend card, which I think is a more consistent thing. And it says, like, from their website, these recommends are for members who have been previously endowed. They are issued from Recommend Book 1. They authorize a member to participate in all temple ordinances for the deceased. They are also used when an endowed member is sealed to living or deceased parents or children. So basically, you get this card for being a good enough Mormon. And if you confess your sin, like, you have to go through an interview process and you have to be deemed worthy to get this card. If you mess up, you can get it taken away. And that's kind of a shameful thing to say, you're not worthy of going into the temple, so I'm going to take that away from you. And the reason I have a problem with this is because of something that happened at the time of Jesus' crucifixion. Again, the only reason I am bringing this up is because people who are Mormon also believe in the Christian Bible. They believe in the Book of Mormon as well as the Christian Bible. They believe that Jesus died for our sins. If this was any other religion, I would not be saying, well, like, this is wrong because Christianity says this, right? I just want to get it completely clear. That is the only reason I am bringing it up. So in the Bible, in the Christian Bible, there is a, like, how do I want to set this up and frame it? Basically, before Jesus died to save people who believe in him, just died for our sins. I'm going to talk like I was talking to another believer, just for the sake of getting through the story and not making a ton of like caveats of like, if you believe this, up to you, whatever. So before Jesus came to die for our sins, there was a place called the Holiest of Holies, and this was in a temple. Now, this place for the Holiest of Holies was separated from the rest of the temple by a big curtain or a veil, a sheet, whatever. Behind this veil was the Ark of the Covenant, which is like a wooden box covered in gold that contains the 2 stones of the 10 Commandments. And this place was off limits. It's like, this is where the Spirit of God lives. This is where the presence of God lies. You do not go there. You are not worthy. The only person who was allowed to go there was the high priest, to go once per year to bring a sacrifice and atone for his own sins as well as the sins of others, that if they committed them unknowingly. And so that is the only time, once per year, somebody could go back and be in the presence of God. Now, in the story in Matthew, this is Matthew 25:7, in the story of Christ's crucifixion, it says that at the moment Christ died, the veil in the temple tore in two from top to bottom. And essentially, like, if you read it in scripture, it doesn't really make sense. There's not a lot of context behind it, but you look into the history and the context of it, and you understand that when Christ died, as he is dying, the veil tears. It's in two. There's no longer that separation between where God is and where everybody else is. And so kind of the bigger picture of it is that you no longer have to be this like super special, high ranking member of the church, like super spiritual, deemed worthy person to be in the presence of God. You are worthy as you are. And so that's kind of why I have a problem with this temple recommend card, where it's like you have to meet these standards, you have to be judged as worthy in order to, you know, be valuable enough, be clean enough, be worthy enough to go into this sacred place. Because when Jesus died for our sins, there was no longer a need for that. God's everywhere. God's with everybody. Everybody is worthy of being in God's presence. And so I think this temple recommend is kind of a way to get people to confess to their sins, get them on like a probation plan of how they need to act in order to get it back. And of course, people want to get it back because like kids can all go and do these stand-in for posthumous baptisms and do it together, and all their friends can go. And if you don't have your temple recommend, you can't go with them. And so I think it's just kind of a way to control people, and I also think it's biblically clashing. So that's me. I'm going to check in on your comments, and then we'll get into Hallie's video. Jean said some religions like to twist sayings from their book of belief for pushing their agenda. Yeah, Purple J said they've also baptized Hitler several times. Smittenkin said they've done it to many Jewish people too. Yeah, I heard they did it for Anne Frank as well. And I'm like, why? Like, why do you think that that's okay? Cass said, I'm gay and non-binary, so I always felt like the worst sinner in the world during my time as a Christian. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry that people made you feel like that. And it's a common thing. It's literally, for me, I just don't understand the prerogative of making people feel bad for who they are if you are Christian. Because if you're Christian, if you believe in Jesus, you believe that everybody is worthy and everybody is loved, and who are we to judge? Like it said that Jesus didn't come to earth to condemn the world, but to save the world, to love people, to show them love and acceptance. And Jesus hung out with all the people that got judged in their communities. And so when people who are religious want to shame other people who are Christian want to tell other people that they're wrong and shame them and make them feel bad, I'm like, is that what Jesus would do? Is it really? Is that how you think he would act? That's just how I like to approach my life. Not so much as like, well, these are the rules and here's everything that you need to do, and you know, if you don't follow this thing XYZ exactly, you're going to hell. It's like, how would Jesus act? What would he do in this situation? How would he live? And that's how I try. Dietitian Kat Benson said it's also works-based, right? So I can't find any official literature that says that, because I always thought it was works-based too. Maybe I haven't looked hard enough. But like, I think the impression is like, yeah, it's works-based. Like, get out there, go do the work, roll up your sleeves, do all the good works you can, so that way you can get into a higher level in the afterlife. But again, I have not seen any like official documents readily available on the church website saying that it's works-based, but also I think it is. So yeah, let's go ahead, and now that we've gotten that out of the way, I'm sure that took way longer. Oh my gosh, 40 minutes. Let's get into Hallie's video, because I think it is so important, and it's such a beautiful sentiment of what so many people feel when they are going through deconstruction and things that they wish they could change about how their faith has been. Audrey said, first day of confirmation class at my home parish, and the priest said, teenage girls who get abortions are as bad as killers on death row. I immediately walked out and went to another church. thank goodness. Like, oh my gosh. That's horrible, and good on you for walking out, because disgusting. Oh, no, I cannot get sidetracked. I'm not going to get sidetracked. I'm not going to do it. Let's just get into the video. And if it comes up throughout Hallie's video, I'll bring it up, but I'm not going to say it. I like just keep wanting to talk about it because I watched that whole 5-hour podcast that she did. And there's so many things that she talked about that I want to talk about, but I can't. Okay, let's just get into her video, because let's go. So, is it seriously not going to come up now? Ugh. I'm going to be so mad if it's not going to play now. Why won't it? There we go. Oh my gosh. Okay. So. Oh, my laptop's not plugged in. There we go. Plugged in. I've got your comments right here. And let's go.
Sorrow. When I came back, I just felt...
Let me know if the volume's good.
I feel so sick to my stomach. Just so sad. So heartbroken. My eyes have just been opened to so much. And once again, the very first thing I have to say is I am sorry. Ever since when I left the church,
She's talking about the first time when she was, like, just graduated college, when she left, before she came back.
So much pain and sadness, darkness, sorrow. When I came back, I just felt so, like, clean and light and just, like, grateful for the atonement and for the church.
Like, let me get this closer.
And I had to be all in. Like, that's my personality, right? I am just so passionate, so extreme on either end of the spectrum. And when it came to the church, I was just 100% so all for it. Trying to be perfect, trying to be exactly obedient. I was so grateful to God for his blessings and miracles in my life that I just wanted to show him how much I loved him. And I wanted to be loyal to his church and to his prophets. And while of course I wasn't perfect, right? I by no means was great at reading my scriptures and saying prayers and doing ministering and wearing garments and not judging others, right? Like, I'm not saying I was perfect, but I really, really tried to be. I wanted to be. And most importantly...
And that's the thing I think we see in a lot of religions, is this desire, this need to be perfect, this feeling of I need to live up to what the church is telling me. Oh, it's still low. I'm sorry, guys. Let me, like, get the microphone a little bit closer, because that's as loud as it can go on my end. But yeah, so, and especially, I know, for me, obviously, I was not in the Mormon church, but, like, again, putting it in perspective, I was one of 3 people on the entire student council who were not Mormon. And, like, pretty much everybody at my high school was Mormon. Not everyone, obviously, but the good majority of the people. And they were all high achievers, had, like, tons of extracurriculars, super talented, musical in some way, like singing, playing an instrument, whatever, into sports. Like, they were just expected to be these overachievers, perfect people. And I feel like that's a lot to put on somebody. And again, a way of controlling somebody is placing expectations on them and then making them feel bad if they don't reach them.
Much as my actions weren't always perfect, I wanted my heart and my intention to be perfect, and my intention being to follow God and to defend his church and stand up for it and teach it to others, right? That's why I started my YouTube channel, because I had to share the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ and the atonement and families can be together forever and everything that encompasses the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so I came on here and I made all these videos about marriage, modesty, word of wisdom, chastity, keeping the commandments, all these things. And I really, really tried. I think if you look back at, especially a few specific videos, I really tried to let people know their worth, that they're loved, that there is hope, that their mistakes don't define them. I really tried to always incorporate that message, but still at the end of the day, my loyalty was to the church and to the teachings and
The
what is
facade of
true
the
and right.
perfect believer.
And I think my message didn't always come across in the way I wanted it to, and I know that my message did hurt people, and I want to apologize for that right off the bat.
And I think that this is so incredible of her to be able to take ownership of that and say, like, I thought I was doing what was right, and I hurt people, and I'm sorry. Like, that is so big to not just bury your head in the sand and double down, but to be able to admit that you are wrong. I think that's so incredible.
Now I see. I was so loyal to the church and defended the church so much. Like, yes, they're imperfect people. Like, I'm an imperfect person. Whether I was in Young Women's presidency, Relief Society presidency, if I was in the general presidency of the church, of course I would get some stuff wrong, especially in my personal life, right?
Okay, this is kind of a side note. Sorry. Michelle, I'm seeing some of your comments, and you said, I'm not sure exactly. I know there's a website where you can go and just put your name in, and then you're resigned, but I can't remember the website right now. So you're, like, talking about resigning from the LDS church. What exactly does that look like? Is that something that, like, needs to happen? Do you have any obligation to the church if you don't officially resign? That's just something I'm really interested in. I know that's a side note, but I wanted to ask before I forgot.
Alone as a person who's trying to speak for the church and share the gospel. Like, I just always defended the church and conference talks, and I tried to interpret them and regurgitate them and explain them in a way that would help people. I can't really say there are too many times that I've listened to General Conference or been, like, in Sunday school or whatever, I've thought, like, that is totally wrong. That is not right. I can't believe the church teaches that. There have been times where I'm like, I don't really interpret it that way. Sabbath day holy observance, like, what's okay, what's not, you know, things like that. There's room for discretion. But things with, like, the word of wisdom, I was so, just be obedient. It's so easy. Don't watch rated R movies. Don't go shopping on Sunday. Like, the Lord loves effort. Just do what they ask you to do.
That's, like, I've watched this several times because obviously I've reacted to this video before. But talking about, like, not watching rated R movies, not going shopping on Sunday, rules like that are just a way to control people, a way to make them feel like they will never measure up, they are not good enough, and they need you. They need the church because they just keep getting it wrong. And if they can make themselves part of every single decision in your life that you make, as opposed to, like, for me, I would say I think about my church very little. I think about it when it's, like, Sunday and it's time to watch service, or when I tithe. Like, that's most often when I think about my church. More often than not, my thought is on my faith and my religion and my relationship with the divine. That's what I think about. Not like, what would this person at my church think? And I want that for people. Again, everybody should believe what they want, but I don't want people to feel bogged down by rules and like they'll just never measure up. Michelle said, well, it's just that everywhere you go, your records with the church will be passed from ward to ward. Oh, gotcha. Something really interesting that Hallie said on her Mormon Stories interview was that this is just disgusting to me, but she had to, like, confess all of her sexual sins, and I don't remember the exact word that she said, but it was kind of like probation. I don't know. There was a 6-month period that she had to wait before she could take the sacrament again, which I think is just communion, and so it was like 6 months where she was on this probation, and that was her punishment for her sexual sins. And then when she went to get her temple recommend card to get married in the temple, the person who was interviewing her asked if she had broke the laws of chastity, and she was like, well, he doesn't know, but I guess I'll just be honest. And the dude had a list. The dude had a list of every sin she had confessed to that caused her to get in trouble in the first place. So violating, So she was like 20, she was in her early 20s at the time, and this kind of questioning starts at like 8 years old, questioning little kids about if they've kept the laws of chastity, and it is a bunch of male bishops doing this, asking these questions. Who?
If the prophets and apostles speak for God, just listen to them. Don't be selfish. Don't be lazy. Don't say, well, I don't think I'm going to be kept out of heaven because I drink 1 cup of coffee every day, when there are people who drink, tons of soda all day long. And I hated that argument because I was like, well, yeah, soda's bad too. So those people are also missing the point. Stop doing things that are unhealthy. Don't drink the coffee. Don't justify it. Like, I was just, and I was judgy because of it. And I tried really hard not to be. And I think over the years, I definitely got better at realizing everyone has different interpretations and their testimony of certain principles in the gospel. Like, I tried to get better at that. But I still was just so loyal to the church and to the teachings that I didn't realize the pain that I was causing and the pain that the teachings of the church caused. And again, I always blamed it on the people. Like, well, they had a bad bishop, or they had a bad young women's leader, or their parents were like Nazi Mormons. They got it wrong. That's not the
brainwashing starts young.
And there's a lot of discussion about church culture. And Al Caraway had a post about how church culture is just human culture. People are always, in every family, in every religion, in every community, there are always going to be those who are like judgmental, or shame you for doing things, or exiling you for doing things. Like, welcome to life. And while I agree with that, that doesn't mean it's okay. And I think culture is a direct correlation to the doctrine. So I'm not going to sit here in this video and like nitpick things that the church teaches and how people interpret it the wrong way and how it's harmful to people, but I do want to say I'm sorry. And there are a few things that I do want to let you know, especially if any of you are teenagers.
I'm like
there are some things
trying not to get emotional with this because I've cried. I like teared up every time I've watched this because I don't know, I can't identify to the exact intensity because I was never questioned as a child about my sexual habits. Like, they ask if you've masturbated, how many times, like, just really invasive questions. And I know for a fact that this happens because I have spoken to Mormons who have told me about it. And so it's just so violating and literally makes you feel so ashamed. And there's a little bit of that in the Christian church. I mean, there's a lot of it in the Christian church, but not to the same intensity, I don't think, as in the Mormon church. And so I relate to her. I feel bad. I know how much shame I've experienced around that because of growing up in the Christian church. And so I can't imagine the level of her, like the intensity with which she feels this.
I cannot bear the fact that there are teenagers who hate themselves and who feel like they are not good enough and they're never going to measure up. They're never going to be worthy enough to go on a mission or go to the temple. They're never going to be good enough to find a spouse to marry in the temple. They're never going to live up to their parents' expectations. That they're never going to live up to God's expectations. That God is probably disappointed with them and doesn't love them because of the mistakes they make. Know that there are people who are confused and have questions or doubts, and they have no safe place to turn to, no one to talk to. I know there are people who hold on to so much guilt.
Because if you question things, if you bring up things that are upsetting to you or that you don't quite get, a lot of times you will just get told, like, why are you trying to cause a problem? Why are you doubting this? Why are you trying to, like, destroy your faith? You just don't want to follow the rules, X, Y, Z. So hard.
And shame for mistakes they feel like they've made, and they hate themselves for it. And they're not even mistakes. And then there are grown adults who look back and they're like, man, I was such a good teenager, and yet I always felt like I was getting it wrong. I beat myself up so much as a teenager. That's horrible. You should not be carrying around that pain 10, 20, 30 plus years later. I know that there are women, mothers who worked their butt off to be the best mom they could be, who did scripture study, prayer, temple nights, mutual, FHE, all the stuff in their home so that they could teach their kids the gospel and save their kids, right? So that their kids would not make any bad decisions and not leave the church. And yet their kids turn out gay, or their kids leave the church, or their kids get pregnant, and the moms hate themselves, feeling like, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? You did nothing wrong. There are people who are gay who feel like there's something wrong with them. God made them wrong, or they did something wrong to deserve having those feelings. There are men who feel like they could never get it right. There's so much pressure on men to provide.
Smittenkin said, this is getting to me. She's really amazing. I think this awareness is so incredible, especially to see from somebody who defended the church so hard. Like, she built her social media following talking about the church, and her experience leaving and coming back and writing a book about it. And so to come on here and say, like, to go against the church and say, if you're gay, like, there's nothing wrong with you. You didn't do anything wrong. And with parents, it's like, if you're, I'm not saying that this is like a strictly Mormon thing, but in religions, a lot of time, it's like, well, your kid turned out like this, whether it's pregnant, not still a member of the faith, just making bad choices, on drugs, doing whatever. And it's like, well, what did you do? You didn't raise them right. You didn't work hard enough at instilling the faith in them. And that's just not true. Everyone's free to make their own decisions. Everybody lives their own life. And so it's like, it's putting pressure on people to be perfect parents and then shaming them if their kid does something that goes against the church, when their kid is their own person. You can't make people feel bad about the decisions of others. Wild Shivers ASMR said, ugh, I know a lot of ex-Mormons, and they are very traumatized by how they were treated. Yeah. Kaz said, this is why predators flourish in these organizations. They're given the little black book on everyone, so much power, and for what? Exactly. And Hallie said when she went to get the temple recommend card, the bishop who was like going to give it to her, I don't know all the ins and outs of the organizations, but they were like, you only got in trouble for 6 months for what you did. If I was your bishop, it would have been at least a year. Like, he had an entire list of everything she confessed to. And even though she did what she was told to do, like, she didn't take the sacrament, she, kept the laws of chastity, she did everything that they told her to do to be a perfect Mormon. And then she comes back and somebody still wants to make her feel bad and say, well, you did it for 6 months, but that's not long enough. It should have been a year, but all right. Michelle said, but then again, I knew my bishop, and he was a really good guy. He was the bishop for the whole time that I was in Young Women's, and I just didn't feel like my personal business was his business. Good for you. Because I think if I was a little kid, I don't know. I don't know what I would have said. I don't know if I would have had the, like, wherewithal to be like, that's my business. Audrey said, it sounds like a systemic invasion of privacy and abuse of its members. Absolutely. Peapot Fairy said she and her husband have to be going through it hardcore right now. They are, because he's not at this point. She, I don't know if you were in here at the beginning, Peapot Fairy, but she's at the point where she's like, I don't want my kids growing up in this church. I don't want them taught all of these ridiculous rules and feeling bad about themselves and feeling shame for things that are normal. Like, I want them to love everybody and learn from everybody and make their own decision with informed consent when it comes to their religion. And he's just not there. So, oof. No, he's still a member. He, like she said, she's like, I feel bad because it's like causing a fight that I have iced tea in the fridge and he wouldn't let me like take the kids swimming on Sunday. And that's gotta be so hard because, like I said, they've gone through their own issues. They've each done things to hurt each other. And I don't think they were hurting each other intentionally. It's just, we're all imperfect people, and sometimes we hurt people that we love. And so they've been going through it. It got a little bit better, and then she got hit with, things about the church are not making sense to me anymore. This isn't making sense. And I feel for her. Honestly, I knew she lived in Arizona at some point. I didn't know if she still did, but she said on the Mormon Stories podcast that she still lives in Arizona. And so I'm like, Hallie, girl, like, I don't know I hope she has a good community of friends around her to help her through this deconstruction. But I'm like, if you want to get coffee, if you ever see this, Hallie, let me know. Let's get coffee. If you want to come over and just zone out and chill, like, I got you. I know we're strangers, but the door's open.
Protect, be a good priesthood holder, give blessings, be the head of the household, teach their kids the gospel, do their, not home teaching, what's it called, ministering. There's so much pressure on them that they can never measure up. They can never do it all, and definitely not good enough. There are marriages that have been nearly destroyed because of the pressure to all of a sudden flip a switch and say, oh, now sex is good. Okay, now we need to enjoy sex and like it, but I thought I spent my whole life thinking my body was bad and sex was bad. And now they have no physical intimacy. Or one spouse maybe has a stronger testimony than the other, and the spouse is like, why aren't you reading your scriptures? Why aren't you saying your prayers? You need to do better. And there's resentment. There's so much. There's so many people who are hurting. And it breaks my heart because they don't know how loved they are, how good they are, and how okay and safe they are. But they don't feel safe. They're scared.
This is the part that gets
I hate that. Nothing you do. You hear me? Nothing you do.
Ooh. Oh, I forgot to cut this out.
Your worth does not change. You feel alone.
So nothing you do can make you unworthy. Your worth does not change. Vaishnavi said, someone has to take the initiative to break the cycle. It's sad that it's taking such a toll on her, though. Stay strong. Yeah. It's just, I can't imagine how hard that is. Like, again, getting baptized at 15, going to BYU, not feeling like you're good enough, not fitting in, leaving the church, coming back, doing everything you can to be a perfect Mormon, getting married in the temple, defending your church, like, trying to be a perfect wife, a perfect mom, trying to do all of that and still not feeling like enough. And then finally, like, saying, this isn't what I want, but also the person that you love, like, your best friend, your spouse, isn't on board. And of course, you can't force anybody to believe or not believe the same things as you. But for her to feel like she has this freedom now that she's realized that the church is not for her, but to also have a husband and kids with that husband who you don't know if you're going to be able to reconcile it.
An outcast, like you don't fit in, like you don't belong, like it's never felt good and comfortable to you. Like you've never been enough. You are enough. You're amazing. You're perfect. You're loved. You might not believe it, but you are. There is a place for you. You are not alone. Jesus Christ knows exactly how you feel. He's felt your pain. He's felt hated and alone and misunderstood. And I can tell you right now, there are so many people on this earth at this very second who feel the exact same way you do. There are a couple of things, like I said, specific examples I want to address. First thing are parents, church leaders, bishops who don't believe you when you talk about how you've been wronged, harassed, raped, assaulted. People who act like it's your fault. What were you wearing? Well, what did you do? Well, what did you say? What did you do to provoke it? Who tell you to repent like you did something wrong? That's not right. It is not your fault. It is not your fault. To the people who have had their concerns or doubts just dismissed, your points are valid. Your thoughts and feelings matter. If you feel like there's no safe place for you to go, you don't have friends, you don't have parents, you don't have leaders to turn to, because they'll just tell you, you just don't have enough faith, or that's your fault, or you're interpreting that wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. It's not your fault. It's not because you're lacking in faith. It's not because you're sinning. You need it.
And that is such a hard thing, because when you are in the LDS church, like, everything is based on your community. And so if you're questioning something or wanting to leave, a lot of times, I mean, again, I've never experienced it, but I've heard from other people that they get, it kind of feels like a threat of like, well, where are you going to go? What are you going to have? Like, if you leave the church, the church is what you need. So if you leave, you're not going to have anybody. You're not going to have your family, your friends. You're not going to be sealed to them. You're not going to be with them forever in the afterlife. And it makes you feel like there is nothing out there for you, which has to be incredibly daunting. Wild Shivers ASMR said, an ex-mo friend of mine's wife was so terrified of losing her virginity that they didn't have sex for 4 months after their wedding date. The virgin identity is hard to let go of when sex is demonized. Absolutely. And it's like in a lot of religions, they want to vilify your body, but then as soon as you get married, it's like, okay, flip the switch, like, let's go, it's good now. It's good now. And especially with like fundamentalist Christian sex, it's your body's bad, your body is shameful, don't wear anything revealing, don't have sex, no heavy petting, no being alone together for more than 2 hours, like all of these rules. And then you get married, and in the case of the transformed wife, it's okay now whenever your husband wants it, however he wants it, even if you're not into it. You gotta go. You gotta make him happy. You gotta keep him satisfied. And if you don't, if he cheats, you've deprived him. You've defrauded your husband. How do you reconcile that? How does that make sense? Jean said she is such a strong, beautiful, and intelligent woman, and I hope she continues to take the path that makes her happy and not be enforced with beliefs she can't align with. Yeah, I hope that she keeps on this. She spoke a little bit about how it has been really hard because a lot of Mormons are coming at her and like questioning her motives and saying that she's trying to like tear the church down when she goes through the literature and calls out things that don't make sense to her. And she's like, I can't live with this. I can't live with these rules and this shame. And like, to me, things that are being said in the church are not from God, and I'm not okay with that. And she's just trying to find her faith and take ownership over it and not feel like there's this standard she can't live up to. And so I hope that she doesn't let those people who are coming after her like make her doubt herself, make her doubt her search for truth. Dietitian Kat Benson said, not the same thing, but this is very similar to leaving an MLM. Yep. And it's interesting because so many MLMs are also like tied in with religion, where like they use your faith to rope you into it. And again, like leaving an MLM, it's like, well, we're all your friends and we're going to block you. We're not going to talk to you anymore. You're going to be removed from all these groups. That's hard. Peapot Fairy said, I bet LDS has lost a lot of members in the past year. That religion really requires constant indoctrination. It's why they have so many church activities. Good point. I've heard, I don't have like the exact numbers, but I've heard that they've lost more members last year than they gained. And it seems like this is kind of a trend where they don't really talk about it, they don't acknowledge it, but they're trying so hard to keep their members. One, because part of like being an endowed member of the church is promising to tithe for the rest of your life, essentially. And so they need the money, but also they're losing so many members, and so they're trying to keep them all in, funnel them back. Sadie K said, my partner and I go to an evangelical church, and one of the pastors asked him to go to lunch. He went, came home, and told me we had to stop having sex or else God wouldn't bless us. And the pastor thought that that was appropriate to invite your partner and like tell your partner what you guys have to do.
And you deserve
Interesting.
a safe place to voice your
That's
concerns.
okay. I'm just gonna say it. Pastors have a tendency to overstep boundaries, and I know somebody who was very personally affected by a pastor overstepping their boundary in that way, and I'm so sorry to anybody who has had to deal with that, including you, Sadie. It's not okay when they do that. I get that they're supposed to be like the leader of their congregation, but also some things are just not your business, as in the pastor's business. Some things are not for you to dictate, to tell people, to threaten and say, if you don't tell this person that this happened, I'm going to tell them for you because it's a sin. Or if you don't stop having sex, the Lord's not going to bless you. The Lord's going to curse you. Just,
Thoughts and feelings and opinions, because your voice matters. How you feel matters. To those who have expressed their concerns or doubts or opinions, and you've been threatened, your eternal salvation has been threatened. Well, where else are you going to go to find eternal life? No other church teaches what our church teaches. Well, how are you going to be with your family forever? If you don't believe this, you're not going to be with your family forever. If you break your covenants, you're going to go to hell. You're going to go to the celestial kingdom. You're not going to be with your family. You're not going to be happy. Threatening you. is wrong. It is wrong. That is not Jesus, especially not.
I will say, one time in high school, a Mormon girl, I know her name exactly, but I will not say it. I won't put her on blast. She told me that I was going to hell because my nose is pierced. At 14. When I was 14, another 14-year-old in my grade told me I was going to hell because my nose is pierced. And it's like, let's chill. Let's relax a little bit. You're 14. I don't know why you're so invested in this, but I think I'll be fine.
Because of concerns, doubts, feelings, opinions, none of that is wrong. Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments. But if you don't, he died for you. You have his grace. You have his forgiveness. It's already done. And feelings and thoughts and opinions are different than actions. Maybe you need to repent for some actions. That doesn't mean you are bad or you are wrong. If your parents, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife tell you you're not good enough, you're not doing a good enough job, you're not being a good enough Mormon, you need to step it up.
You know she feels that. I'm not gonna say that somebody, not gonna say who I think it was, who made her feel like she wasn't being a good enough Mormon, but you know that somebody very close to her heart has made her feel like that.
You need to do better, or else you're gonna miss out on blessings. Believing in God isn't enough. There's only one true covenant path that will take us to the celestial kingdom. So if you don't follow that covenant path, you're not going to the celestial kingdom. You can't just believe in God. You're not going to be enough. You're not doing good enough to get there. You're not following the path. That's just damaging, hurtful. That's not the gospel of love and hope and grace. It's wrong. It's wrong to tell people that. If you mess up and make bad decisions, if you don't keep the commandments or stay on the covenant path, you're not gone. You're not lost. You're not too far gone to be saved. There's always hope. There's always love. There's always grace. Jesus died for you. It's already done. He covered everything. All you have to do is...
That's why I don't believe in temple recommends, because, I'm not mad at her, but it's like, they believe in the Christian Bible. They believe that it's already done, that Jesus came and died for you to save you because he loves you and you are worthy just as you are. So why are we having to do these interviews and confess all of our sins to you, and you can tell me what my punishment is and whether or not I'm worthy enough to take the sacrament, to participate in my religion?
And want to follow him and try. Just try. It's okay that you mess up. It's okay that you make mistakes. It's okay that you're imperfect. Just keep trying. You're doing great. It's okay. You don't need to feel like your world is over and your world is going to come crumbling down because you've made a mistake. Maybe it was a bad one. It's okay. It's going to be okay. You're still loved. You're still good. You are always enough. Always. To the people who've been hurt by the judgment of others, the exclusion of others, especially teenagers who won't befriend you because you're a little different, or because you made a mistake, because you don't have the same beliefs or the same family, because you don't dress the same way they do, because you don't have the same testimony they do, you don't meet their standards. I'm so sorry. You've been judged and looked down upon and excluded. It's wrong. That's not what Jesus teaches. Jesus wants all of us. He loves all of us. He doesn't care. He doesn't. And if you have ever lied so that you can pretend and try to fit in, lied in a temple recommend interview so that you can go to the temple and do baptisms with your friends, because what would that mean if you were honest and you couldn't go? If you pretended to believe the same thing someone else did because you know that they wouldn't want to be your friend or they wouldn't accept you. Your own family, if you had to pretend to believe the same things they did, or pretend that you maybe didn't do the things that you did because you're so scared that you're not going to be loved or accepted.
I'm going to pause because I want to read this comment. Pure Cane Sugar said, I feel like one of the things I really disagreed with in Christianity was when I was told not everyone has chosen to go to heaven. That did not sit right with me. Like, how do we know if I was chosen? Could I be saved and still not be chosen to get in? That never made sense to me. Yeah, I personally don't believe that. I know there are plenty of religions and faith systems who do, but it's like, I mean, for me, from where I sit, it's like, well, if Jesus, died for all of us, if God created all of us, if you're a religious person and that's what you believe, if God created all of us, why would he only say, I created all of you in my image. I love ya. I love all of ya. And I would like for you to choose that you would like to be saved. But also, not everybody's coming back. Like, not everybody can get into heaven. I don't at all subscribe to that. Saya said, my heart breaks for her. Doing good things doesn't earn you points with God. That's not what the Bible says. Exactly. You do not have to do it. You do not have to earn it. You are perfect as you are.
That's not right either. There are always consequences in life to the decisions we make, but love should always be there for you. And it is. It really is. And I'm so sorry if it doesn't come from the people who it should. I'm so sorry if your parents, your friends, your spouse, I'm so sorry if their love wasn't there for you. I'm so sorry. If you have been carrying around shame for being different, for things you've done, please let it go. Don't beat yourself up any longer. Don't hold on to that any longer. You deserve better than that. I know people who literally felt so guilty as teenagers because they said a prayer one time laying down in bed and not on their knees, because they missed reading scriptures one time, because they
ultimate
made out
control
with a boy and started to feel feelings that they shouldn't have felt, and they felt like they needed to go to the bishop and repent over that, and they carry around that weight. Let it go. Even the big things, maybe you really did something wrong, let it go. It's taken care of. It's done. You don't have to feel that pain, that shame, the weight, the guilt. Let it go. I'm so sorry that you spent time feeling like you weren't good enough or you were bad for things that you've done. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to end this video, but I just want you to know that you're loved and that it's okay, whatever you believe or think or feel or doubts or concerns or questions you have or mistakes you've made, you're okay and you are loved and you are worthy and you are enough. And it is not right for anyone to tell you otherwise. And I hope you know that. And again, I'm so sorry if I was not a safe place. And if I caused pain and hurt, and if I shared a message that was the opposite of what Jesus wants and what Jesus feels and what Jesus teaches, I didn't know I was doing something wrong. I'm so sorry if I hurt you. I'm so sorry for the judgment that I passed on to others. And I hope for anyone watching this video who is like me, who is so black and white, who said, oh, it's their fault, and who haven't struggled with feeling those things, please try to have empathy for those who have. Brene Brown said, in order to empathize with someone's experience, you must be willing to believe them as they see it, not how you imagine their experience to be. I know it's hard to put yourself in someone else's shoes sometimes and comprehend how they feel because you see it so differently than them. But that's what we promise to do, to mourn with those who mourn, to bear their burdens with them. So please try. Please try to see the pain.
Spitting Kitten said, she is preaching what Jesus said, isn't she, that we're all loved and good? At this point, yes. At this point, she is. But I think for a long time, she just... Something that I've kind of gleaned from her story is that she had a hard time growing up, like, because her mom and dad were divorced. And so she just wanted, like, that ultimate love, that forever family. And when Mormonism was introduced and it was like, you can be sealed to your spouse, to your kids, and you'll stay together forever in the afterlife, it was like, okay, this is the thing that I've been wanting. This is the thing that I need. And so even like the toxic ideas in Mormonism, she would defend, she would, you know, like she said, you know, get mad at people who were watching rated R movies or people who didn't wear their garments, people who drank Diet Coke, whatever. She would get kind of hung up on that. And now she's coming to the point where she's like, this stuff doesn't matter. Like, you're good, you are worthy, you are loved. And I think it's so cool that she's at this point now. And I know that it's hard. And we'll just go ahead and kind of, sorry, let me get my feet up. We'll kind of cut it off here because it's just kind of a closing out of the video from here. Like, from here on out, it's just kind of like her closing it. And I just think it's so cool that she's at this point. I know it is probably so hard. And she's 28 now, I believe. So she's been in this religion for a long time. And losing something that you've held so close to your heart and something that you thought was going to give you that thing you've always wanted has got to just be so difficult. But I think it's really cool that she has gotten to this point and she's talking about it and being open and apologizing for the hurt that she has caused and being willing to admit that she was wrong. So I thought this was a really cool thing to put out. I will go back after we end this and I'll put a link to her channel in my description box if you want to go and take a look at the content that she used to put out and the kind of content that she's putting out now. If you want to watch her videos going through the literature of the Mormon Church, something I thought that was so interesting is that the Mormon Church apparently, in her experience, does not teach the interpreting of the golden plates the way that Joseph Smith had documented it. Apparently, in the Mormon Church, they teach that, like, not teach, but like they show these videos, like the propaganda videos of Joseph Smith having like the plates in his hand and like reading and interpreting them. But if you look at Joseph Smith's like own journals, he talks about how he would never saw the plates in person. He was not allowed to. He had to like make himself worthy, and in order to interpret them, he didn't actually hold the plates in his hand. He had a seer stone. Joseph Smith's family was very into right-hand path magic, which is obviously not something that they teach for clear reasons. But they were very into magic and mystical worlds, and he had a seer stone, put his head in a bag, and used it to see what was on the plates and interpret. And actually, the Spinning Kitten said, we've all seen the South Park episode. I've watched like one episode of South Park, but they have one about Mormonism. But there's, I don't know if they teach this in the church, but the version of the Book of Mormon that they have now is not the original version. I don't remember the exact names, but Joseph had his wife transcribing like what he was seeing in the seer stones, and then he also brought in somebody else who was kind of funding the founding of the church. And his wife, the person that he brought in, that dude's wife was like, I don't believe in this, like I'm not about it, this dude is off his rocker. What do you mean you're giving him money for this project and to start this church? And so eventually she was like, I need to read this book. Like, I need to read it. Bring me what you have. I don't trust that this person is saying what is true. And so I think her name was Lucy. I don't know. Anyway, dude gets Joseph to give him the book to give to his wife. His wife hides it and says, oh, well, if you interpreted the stones, like if these are real, you can just do it again. And then he says, oh, actually, like, this was not actually what was on the stones. I'm glad that I can redo it because actually it was all wrong. And so it's like there's two different versions, and she never knew that they'd used the seer stone. So just very interesting things. And hearing her go through it as somebody who has spent a long time in the church and should be taught the actual history, her not knowing those things was very fascinating. So just, it's interesting. Like I said, I'll put a link, and if you want to watch those, feel free. Maybe send her some encouragement, leave a nice comment on her videos, because she said she is getting a lot of hate from people in the Mormon church, and it is nice to have encouragement from people who are just telling her, like, hey, keep going, you do you, you'll figure it out, you'll be okay. So go ahead and do that if you want. And other than that, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. If there's any other comments that you want to make, any other stories you want to share, feel free. I posted on my community tab just a regular post. I'm going to film a Q&A. It's been a while since I've done one, so if you want to leave any questions there, I'm going to be filming it over this weekend. And I put up an Instagram story where you could like put questions in, and I didn't really get a ton, so I'm debating putting another one up. Maybe I'll put one as soon as we get off of this. That way, if you want to go and like you don't want to ask your question publicly, you can go do that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to talk about while anyone's like writing their final comments. Soul CBD, the company that I have an affiliate link for, is having a sale for Memorial Day. It's buy one, get one 50% off. Additionally, I got an affiliate link for Hydro Jug. These bad boys, I've been using them for the past month. I'm a big fan. I haven't like set up all my affiliate stuff, but they are having a 20% off sale. So if you want a new water bottle and you want to go to their website, feel free. If you can wait a little bit and you want to help support me until I get my link in the description box, feel free to do that as well and use my link. But yeah, that is pretty much it. Cass said, I need a big water bottle. These are half a gallon. Like, look how big this is. And it's nice. I guess I'll, like, do a little promo. It's nice because the straw, like, folds down. And then you can close the lid. And then you can open it back up. It pops up. There are straps that you can, like, link to this. This is big enough to fit an iPhone 12 Pro Max. There's a little sleeve right there, so feel free if you want to get one. They're somewhat pricey, but I think they're worth it. The insulator sleeve, the handle, it's nice. I'll try and get that up pretty quickly. Saya said, ooh, it's cute. I'll wait. Thank you so much. Saya said, let me do the conversion. I'm getting called out. Vaishnavi said, do you collect water bottles? B, I've seen a few different ones in your videos. Maybe. Yeah, I use a lot of water bottles. Mugs and water bottles are like my big thing. I have kind of not a problem. I wouldn't say a problem, but I collect them a lot. And the reason I got this, I talked about it in another video, is because it has the strap that you can put on here. Having 2 toddlers and having to like carry all their stuff and including like corralling them and getting them into the car became very hard when I had like an open water bottle, because I used to have one of those stainless steel like cups with a straw. And so I would just like leave my water bottle at home, which is so not like me. I don't do that. I always have water with me. And so I had to get something else because I'm like, I need water. I need to bring it with. I need to be able to put the strap on and just walk with it like that, be able to close it up. So that's why I got this. I like it. The insulation sleeve is great. It's not as good as stainless steel, but it works for me. I like it. So I'll try and get that link up. But my camera is about to die. So I'm going to head out. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this live. Like I said, I've been really nervous to like come back and do them. You get out of practice and you feel nervous, and literally before this started I was like, I don't even know if I should. It's gonna be bad, it's gonna be terrible, like it's gonna be the worst thing in the world. And so the fact that like y'all are here hanging out having this combo is really great. So thank you so much. Yeah, feel free to go to ask me questions. I will be posting a new video next week. I'll get the link up for the Hydro Jug, and they're having that 20% off sale. But that's all I've got. Thank you so much for watching. Please be kind to people, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, you guys.